Hi, folks. You were Tacitus today. Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the continued organised efforts to attack and impede law enforcement officers in the United States, particularly immigration enforcement. Now, the organised attempt to interdict and frustrate and impede and prevent immigration enforcement officers from doing their job is quite remarkable in how widespread it is, how organised it is, and how it seems very difficult for the Trump administration to put a stop to it. It's continuing, and it appears to be escalating with the full encouragement of the Democrat Party, an army of NGOs and various, city administrations, local government, state governments, and so on. So it's not an easy gig. I appreciate that, but I guess I've been looking at a number of vids online showing the people arrested, so that the ICE people, and in some cases local law enforcement in areas of Texas, for example, are assisting ICE in arresting these people who are brazenly and openly acting unlawfully. And when you look at the people that are being arrested, they don't look like your hardened criminals. They do look like your street activists, but not hardened criminals in any sense. So I'm just looking at. There's one here, 9 people were arrested. I'm surprised that a couple of people look like they're probably in their 50s. There are nine arrests here, 5 men and 4 women. One of the women looks like she's like the blue-haired college kid sort of look. Another one is, I would think, about 30 and is a government employee, I think a teacher, and then 2 lesbians that are also, as I understand it, federal government employees. Out of the 5 men, again, we see a good representation of government employees, and there's only 2 non-white people in the 9 that are arrested. Now, this would seem odd. It's a thing about illegal migrants. So you would expect to see illegal migrant activists, as in, illegal migrants themselves, or maybe their relatives, that sort of thing, that are involved in this. But that's not so. And looking at a number of videos around that are, show those that are arrested, firstly, they don't seem to be even slightly concerned about being arrested, which is odd. Like, if you get arrested for committing a federal crime, you would think that would be something pretty serious. Particularly if you're a government employee, you could very well lose your job over this, and things like your retirement pension would be affected, and so on. So now, for someone who's career unemployed, and so maybe they would say, well, I don't care, gee, I live on the street anyway. But none of these people looked, they all look quite well fed. None of them look particularly well fit. So they're particularly fit, in fact, not fit at all. Some of them just look, they were waddling around. You got to wonder what they were doing at a protest. There's no way any of them could sprint away from any pursuing officer. So they were unfit. And again, this was interesting, just as the camera panned over them, they didn't seem to give a shit about being arrested. It just, like, they don't really care. In fact, if anything, the impression you got is they think they've accomplished something. It's a badge of honor to be arrested for such a high moral cause. So there's, I guess, there's a few takeaways here. One is that is prime. Out of all the people I've seen arrested, I would think that 80% plus are white, probably 40% are female, the rest are male, and they don't seem to be the slow. Oh, there's a couple of them were looking a little bit disappointed, but the majority of them appeared to be, particularly the women, appeared to think that they've accomplished something major. Hey, guess what? I screamed obscenities at ICE. I shoulder charged them or something, and with my lump of lard body, and I've been arrested. Wow, I'm such a here's proof of my high moral credentials. I got arrested for. So the next takeaway that was interesting is how many of these people are government employees. When I say government employees, I'm talking about teachers, a lot of teachers actually, and junior school, kindergarten. So radicalized people. But how do you radicalize someone to say, look, these people are, the ICE agents are just enforcing immigration law. The immigration law are on the books. They've been on the books, as a result of act of Congress for decades. It's not Trump's special law or something like that. It's laws that have been on the books. If you enter the country illegally, you're committing an offence, and these people are just being deported. And many of these people have also got additional crimes, ranging from, traffic crimes and, drunk under the influence while driving, all these sorts of things like that. So there are additional crimes there. Some already have deportation orders against them, which they're evading. Others have been deported multiple times and have re-entered the country, and so on and so forth. So why is it that there's such? Why are why is it so many people are willing to take to the streets to do this? Again, ramming ICE cars, trying to box them in with other vehicles, assaulting ICE officers, trying to prevent ICE officers from making arrests, and all sorts of harassment and intimidate, threats to dox ICE officers and murder the family members and so on. This is just insane and over the top. And how is this happening? Why is it happening? And then going back to, again, the majority of these people are white, slightly more men than women, but there's not much in it. And it's not your old college kids that are doing this. Quite a few of the people, again, in their 40s and 50s, and government employees. Now, I don't know how that's possible. How just think about this. How is it possible that someone, you can be, whether it's someone comes to you or you're part of some NGO group or activist group, someone's come to you and says, well, look, these law enforcement officers, they're government employees, they're executing laws that are already on the books and have been for decades, and they're deporting people who are in the country illegally. But you know what? We're morally superior to them. They're not allowed to do it. If it's the law, who gives a shit? Fuck the law. It's white man's law. It's Trump's law. It's immoral law. No human being is illegal. How do you convince people to say, okay, all right, then even if you accept that premise, which is a massive stretch, even if you accept that premise, now we want you to go out and break the law. These people are so immoral. The ICE officers, the laws that they're enforcing are immoral and illegitimate. The whole thing is illegitimate. The Trump administration is illegitimate. Anything they do is illegitimate. Anywhere working for this administration is illegitimate. Any law enforcement action they undertake is illegitimate. Not only is it illegitimate, it's so immoral, so incredibly off the planet immoral, that we are obliged to oppose it. We are the moral custodians of what's right and true, and by opposing these people and what they're doing, then we are the morally superior. We are the godlike titans striding the earth, putting the morally evil in their place and preventing them from doing their evil. Hold on a minute, evil? What are you talking about? They're enforcing the law. In what sense is that evil? So now this then takes us to various, and I'm sure you didn't call them debates, but online debates about people that are saying, well, this is why ICE agents should be opposed. That they should be opposed. It is our duty to oppose them, and this is why. And the explanations they put forward, now, some are just crazies, but the essence of it is that firstly, so what if the people are here illegally? No human being is illegal. There should be a pathway to citizenship, and anyone that doesn't provide that pathway to citizenship is immoral and must be opposed. No human being is illegal, so anyone who wants to, or any law or any government body or law enforcement officers that are trying to deport these people, they are illegitimate and immoral because no human being is illegal. Okay, well, neither one of these hold up, to even the slightest scrutiny. It's just an ideological position. It's not it's not an argument to say, well, the law should be ignored, or the law should be opposed, or there are people that should aggressively interfere with the actions of law enforcement officers, up to and including assaulting them and trying to destroy their equipment, such as their trucks and their vans or their depots and so on. So none of that really holds, and none of that really explains this attitude of I can go on the street and brazenly break a law and assault a law enforcement officer, or even threaten to kill them, for goodness sakes. That doesn't really justify the incredible energy that these people are putting into this and the incredible risks they're taking. Also in the debates, they don't appear to be concerned about being arrested. It's like, goes with the territory, so what? And I think this goes back to the BLM Antifa type riots, where there were plenty of arrests, not as many as I'd like to have seen, but there were plenty of arrests. But local prosecutors and local DAs who were working hand in glove with the NGOs and with the activists were giving these people, a slap on the wrist at worst. Many were just being let out without any charges or anything being recorded. In some cases, people who were being arrested and they were given compensation payouts. So clearly the deep state establishment was very much on side with the activism, which we still see, by the way. The Democrat politicians and the NGOs and so on are fully supporting the people. But coming this sort of activism and law breaking, but coming back to the issue, how you get people to go on the street with such aggression and such determination to break the law, to interfere with life. How do you do that? Arguments about no human beings illegal and this sort of thing, that doesn't, and surely that's not enough to energize people to this extent, is it? Well, I wouldn't think so. Sure, the blue head college kid, right? I do get that 19-year-old hysterical, girly blue head college kid. I get that they, the low IQ, and I get that they would do it, but or could be encouraged and talked into doing it. But adults, people in their 40s and 50s and that sort of thing, I just don't buy that. And the extent of law breaking, getting on the street waving a placard, that's one thing. That's not that hard to do, to get people to do that. But to actually assault law enforcement officers and to again, aggressively impede the discharge of their duties, that's a whole nother step. And you have to be, there has to be a degree of off the charts outrage, and the idea that you are so morally correct and true, and they're so immoral that you are obliged to your duty. It would be a failure of just your humanity to not do it. It is even the situation I would see a lot of these people are engaging in. Now, how much of it is planned and organised and paid for, and how much of it is moral outrage, we could debate the dividing line there, because clearly there are paid hustler, activists and organisers, no question of that. If you look how organised some of their movements are, for example, every time the police arrest someone, half a dozen women who are standing back in the crowd will then come to the front line of the protesters and then start screaming hysterically, just so it can be picked up on video and give the impression of mayhem and anarchy and so on. But that's organised. They're clearly, when someone gets arrested, you come forward to the front and scream hysterically. and you can see the set piece maneuvers there. And you can, if you watch the video close enough, you can see that again, that set piece thing happening. But what creates this level of moral outrage, a degree to which say it's okay to go out and assault law enforcement officers, it's okay to be arrested, it's okay to go to prison, it's okay to be fined because I'm so morally, they are immoral. Now you have to be convinced, I would think, and I don't know what sort of level of IQ some of these people are, not higher with, but you have to be convinced that the administration is illegitimate. The Trump presidency, the policies, the laws, everything is illegitimate. Doesn't matter whether it was passed by Congress decades ago or it's an executive order from the president, the duly elected president of the United States. You have to have this to achieve the state of moral outrage. You have to believe that nothing is legitimate. It is all oppressive. It is all evil. It is all bad. And you alone, you the activist on the street, it is only you that are going to make that difference. Now, there's been certainly over the last 20 odd years through the school system and the education system generally, and particularly the colleges, universities and so on, that activism is your duty, is your obligation, is being a good student, getting good grades, is working hard, is looking after your fellow citizens, is helping people, I don't know, someone that falls over from having a heart attack or a stroke. Is it your duty to help these people? Is it your duty to help little old ladies cross the road? Is it your duty to the infirm senior citizen that lives next door? Is it your duty to help them get their groceries every day? No. That's your duty, is to get out there on the street and be a street activist for the big issues of the day, with climate change and supporting illegal immigrants and so on. I don't know how it's possible to radicalize people to think that way, but I'd say it's been largely successful. It's all been paid for by the Western taxpayer. Now, various other arguments in the debates I've seen is that, well, ICE officers aren't just arresting illegal criminal aliens, people who've committed other crimes. They're also arresting people that are in the country illegally. And that's morally wrong. Well, morally wrong how? They're in the country illegally. Again, the laws are on the statute books and have been voted into law by Congress. Why would that be what's wrong with that? But no human. So that comes back to the no human being is illegal thing, and that it's not right to arrest people who have been who are in the country illegally. That's not right. Somehow it's a moral wrong, and it's such a moral wrong. The level of moral wrong is just so great and so huge that it is an obligation for us to fight back against it and aggressively do so, because those laws aren't legitimate. Looking at illegal aliens as illegal aliens is not legitimate, and so on and so forth. So these are, again, a huge stretch, and it's got nothing to do with any sort of reality. It's some sort of ideological perception or miasma, but it's been entrenched so deeply in the minds of these people that they're prepared to go to prison for it. I believe that illegal aliens are not illegal. I believe that the laws that declare them as illegal are not legitimate, and therefore I can break the law. That gives me license to break the law. Because what? Who could actually hold such a view? But yet here you go. There's not just the odd one or two here or there. There are thousands, tens of thousands of people, again cheered on by the Democrats and so on. But I couldn't find a single issue that in these debates, certainly that I've looked at anyway, a single issue that could justify this behaviour. No human being is illegal. What? The laws are illegitimate because I say so, because of some sort of moral. Excuse me. And I couldn't find a single thing. Now there are blatantly false claims, such as ICE are just arresting, gazillions of American citizens and just shipping them off to wherever, South America, just because they still speak with a Latino accent, or they can't speak any English or whatever. Now, how true that is quite another matter. There have been in a dragnet where they get a lot of illegals in a group, and there's criminal illegals in the group. So they go to arrest a criminal illegal, but find that there are 3 or 4 other illegals who are sort of in the same group, in the same room or the same house, but those illegals haven't committed additional crimes, or not that anyone knows of, and they're just with the illegal alien that has committed crimes, and then they all get deported. This seems to be a real sticking point. Why should these, you wouldn't be able to, you wouldn't have found those illegals. They could have successfully hidden in the undergrowth and in the weeds, and you only found them because they were with an illegal alien. We want to make it as hard for you as possible to find these illegals, and just because you find them with the illegal that's committed crimes, that's not right. You've kind of you've acquired a benefit here that you shouldn't have, and we don't like it. So so this view is that the most of the illegals, as in tens of millions of them, you'd never find them. You'd never get. They've got their false documents. They've faked this and so on. You'd never find them if it wasn't for the fact that they would just happen to be in the same room as the criminal illegal alien. So you shouldn't be allowed to deport people just on the basis that they're illegal aliens and just because they happen to be in the same room or house or business or office or factory or whatever as the criminal illegal alien. So that seems to be an odd sort of separation to me. I mean, what? I mean, they're illegal aliens, for fuck's sake. Well, what's the quibble here? But they do quibble this point, and it's a rather fine point. And for some reason, many of them keep on, the advocates against ICE keep coming back to it. Just because those illegals happen to be there with the criminal illegal doesn't mean you should be allowed to arrest them. Then there's the claim that they're arresting American citizens. Now, this is a stretch, because if they arrest the mother and father who are illegal, but they've had children in the United States, the stretch of the argument is that, well, you've put those children with the parents. You didn't separate the parents and the children. You all put them all together because the parents are illegal. Thus, we can claim you've arrested American citizens. Again, a huge stretch, but okay, let's accept that. So are they arguing that parents and children should be separated? Is that what they're... Oh, no, if you do that, then you're putting children in cages. And so that's not moral either. So they're using fanciful sort of moral sort of multi-positioning here to make the argument. But I couldn't find a single argument that justified the levels of outrage and the extent of the lengths these people are prepared to go to frustrate and again assault and attack ICE officers. I couldn't find the reasoning there. Maybe it is there and I'm just missing it. Would you go to that? Would you go to the point and say, well, I'm prepared to go to prison because I don't want illegal aliens to be deported? Why would you give a shit? Is it some sort of strange moral miasma that simple folks like me don't grasp? But I couldn't find it. So we're looking for something else here. This level of outrage and preparedness to go to prison, preparedness to break the law, and just to go, all the laws are illegitimate. There's something else going on there. And it's not just paid activists, although there certainly is that. There's something else going on there. People are sensible people with even a minor degree of sanity would not be prepared to go to prison for something like this. Now, they've either got to be believing that they won't go to prison, they'll just get a little slap on the wrist and be back on the street 5 seconds later, as was the case during those BLM Antifa riots. Or they think it's a moral cause, a hill worth dying on, which would seem strange, because those people who are doing it will derive no personal benefit whatsoever and will achieve nothing other than just making it harder for the law enforcement authorities. But they're not achieved. There's no net benefit to them. So what is it they think they're accomplishing, and how did they reach or achieve this level of insanity and within it the outrage to go and do this sort of stuff? You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.